is quiet, not the peaceful kind, but the kind of quiet that feels watchful. A man stands alone near a window, the light from outside barely touching his face. Nothing around him is moving. Yet something feels about to happen. He is not waiting for news. He is not thinking about the past or planning the future. He is simply standing there, breathing. At first, he does not notice the breath. It moves on its own, silent and steady, in and out, like it has done every moment of his life. Then something changes. He becomes aware of it. The air enters his body, cool and gentle. His chest rises, then falls, for the first time. He is not lost inside his thoughts. He is watching. The world seems too slow, not because time has stopped, but because his attention has shifted. A strange question appears in his mind. If he can watch his breath, who is the one watching? He has lived his whole life reacting to sounds, to people, to worries, to fears. Now he is doing something different. He is observing without trying to change anything. This simple act feels small, almost meaningless, yet it carries a quiet tension, like the moment before a storm. Somewhere beyond this room, scientists once noticed something unsettling. Tiny particles behaved one way when left alone, and another way when measured. The act of observing seemed to change reality itself. The man does not know the equations. He has never stood in a laboratory, but he feels the echo of that mystery inside his own body. As he watches his breath, his thoughts begin to shift. They slow down. Some fade into the background. Others appear more clearly than before. He realizes something unsettling. His thoughts do not arrive with his permission. They come and go like passing clouds, and yet, when he watches them, they soften. This raises another question. If watching a particle changes its behavior, what happens when a human watches his own mind? The room feels different now. Not brighter, not darker, just more alive. He feels a subtle distance between himself and his thoughts, as if he is no longer trapped inside them, as if there is space where there was none before. The breath continues, steady and patient. It does not demand attention, yet it offers an anchor, a way to stay present. The man senses that this moment is important, not dramatic, not loud, but powerful in a quiet way. It feels like standing at the edge of something unseen, a doorway without a frame, a shift that cannot be measured with tools. A thought arises, slow and careful. If attention can change experience, then reality might not be as solid as it seems. He does not reach for answers. He simply keeps watching, breath after breath. The narrator leaves the audience with a sense of unease and wonder. If observation can change the smallest parts of the universe, and awareness can change the inner world, what happens when the observer turns inward fully? This is where the story truly begins. The man remains in the same room. Nothing outside has changed. The walls are still. The light is the same, yet his experience feels different now. His breath continues to move in and out. But something new has entered the moment. Attention. He is no longer lost in his thoughts. He is watching them arrive, one by one. A memory appears, then fades. A worry tries to pull him forward. A sound from outside briefly grabs his focus. Each time he notices, each time he returns to the breath. This simple act creates a strange effect. The thoughts do not stop, but they behave differently. When he fights them, they grow louder. When he follows them, they multiply. But when he observes them quietly, they begin to lose their force. Somewhere in the world of science, this idea is not new. Physicists discovered that observation is not passive. To measure something is to disturb it. To look is to interact. The man does not think about particles or machines, yet he feels the truth of this idea directly. By observing his mind, he is changing it. A thought forms slowly. Maybe the mind is not a solid thing. Maybe it is more like a process, always moving, always responding. He notices how quickly he used to believe every thought, as if each one was a fact, as if each one was him. Now there is distance. The thought appears, and he sees it as an event, not an order, not a command. This distance feels unfamiliar, almost unsettling. If he is not his thoughts, then who is he? The room seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for him to notice something deeper. The narrator gently guides the audience. What if the observer effect is not limited to laboratories? What if it is happening every moment inside the human mind? When attention locks onto fear, fear grows. When attention feeds anger, anger strengthens. But when attention watches without judgment, something loosens. The man sees a pattern forming. Awareness does not control, it reveals. By seeing clearly, old habits begin to weaken, not through force, but through understanding. This idea feels powerful and dangerous at the same time. If attention shapes experience, then much of life may be shaped unconsciously. He realizes how often his attention has been pulled without his choice. By noise, by screens, by worries, by endless thinking, each pull shaping his inner world, moment by moment. Now, for the first time, he senses a choice, not the choice of what thought appears, but the choice of whether to follow it. The breath remains steady, a quiet reminder that he is here. Now, the narrator raises a deeper question. If awareness changes, the mind shapes how reality is experienced. Where does the true observer sit? The man does not answer. He continues to watch. With every breath, the inner world becomes slightly clearer, slightly calmer, and somewhere beneath the calm, a realization begins to form. If observation can change the inner experience, then the observer may be more powerful than he ever imagined. The story moves forward, not with noise or action, but with attention. The man begins to notice something simple. No matter where his thoughts go, the breath is always there. It does not belong to the past. It does not rush toward the future. It exists only now. When his mind drifts, the breath continues. When worries appear, the breath remains steady. It waits without effort. He realizes something quietly important. He cannot stop thoughts from appearing. He cannot control every feeling, but he can return to the breath at any moment. This realization feels grounding, like placing a hand on solid ground during a storm. The narrator gently brings in science. Breathing is not just air moving in and out. It speaks directly to the nervous system. Slow breath calms the body. Shallow breath keeps it alert. Without knowing the details, the man feels the effect. As his breathing softens, his body responds. His shoulders drop slightly. His jaw relaxes. The constant tension he never noticed begins to fade. This makes him curious. If breath can change the body, and awareness can change the mind, what happens when both move together? He begins to watch the breath more closely, not controlling it, not forcing it, just feeling it. The cool air entering his nose, the warm air leaving, the gentle pause between each cycle. That pause catches his attention. It is brief, almost invisible, yet full of stillness. In that pause, there is no thought, no memory, no expectation, only presence. The room feels wider now, as if space has opened inside him. He is not trying to escape life, he is arriving in it. The narrator asks a quiet philosophical question. Is breath only a biological function, or is it the rhythm of awareness itself? Across cultures and centuries, humans have returned to the breath. Monks, philosophers, seekers, scientists, all noticing the same thing. When attention rests on breath, the mind begins to settle. The man does not feel special or enlightened. He feels human, present in a way he has not felt before. Thoughts still appear, but now they feel lighter, less convincing, like echoes rather than commands. He begins to sense that awareness is not something he creates. It is something he allows, and breath is the doorway. Each inhale brings him closer to the body. Each exhale releases what he does not need to hold. The narrator points towards something deeper. Breath connects the inner and outer worlds. It responds to emotion, yet it can influence emotion. This two-way bridge feels important. As if breath is the meeting point between choice and automatic response, the man notices a subtle shift. A life no longer feels like something happening to him. He feels involved, present, participating. The room has not changed. The world outside continues as before, yet his relationship to it feels different. The narrator leaves the audience with a growing sense of meaning. If breath anchors awareness, and awareness shapes experience, then every moment carries quiet potential. The man takes another breath, slow, natural, unforced, and for the first time, he senses that this simple act may be the key, not to controlling reality, but to meeting it fully. Something subtle begins to happen, not all at once, not in a dramatic way, but slowly, like ice, melting under soft light. The man starts to notice his reactions. A sound outside startles him. A familiar tension rises, but this time, he sees it as it happens. Before, reaction came first, then thought, then emotion. All tangled together. Now there is a small gap, a pause, just enough space to notice. The breath moves in, the breath moves out, and in that rhythm, the reaction loosens its grip. He does not push it away. He does not judge it. He simply watches. This watching changes something. Old habits begin to slow, like a machine losing momentum. The narrator explains gently. Much of human life runs on patterns, automatic thoughts, automatic emotions, automatic choices. These patterns were learned through experience, through repetition, through survival. They once protected him, but now, some of them no longer serve him. As awareness grows, the man sees these patterns clearly, not as enemies, but as conditioned responses. A familiar worry appears. Usually it would pull him into a spiral, but now he notices the tightness in his chest, the quickening of breath, the story forming in his mind, and instead of following it, he stays with the breath, he stays with the sensation, he stays with awareness. The worry does not disappear instantly, but it changes, it softens, it loses its urgency. The narrator introduces a powerful idea between stimulus and response. There is space. In that space lives choice. Not loud choice, not forceful decision, but quiet freedom. The man begins to understand this freedom. It is not about controlling life. It is about meeting it consciously. Each moment of awareness weakens old loops, not by fighting them, but by seeing them clearly. This clarity feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable at times. Without old reactions, he does not always know who to be, yet there is relief in this not knowing. A lightness, a sense of openness. The narrator asks the audience to reflect. If awareness creates space, and space allows choice, is this where free will begins? The man feels this question inside himself, not as a theory, but as experience. He notices that he can pause before speaking, pause before reacting, pause before believing every thought. These pauses are small, but they change everything. Life feels less like a chain reaction, and more like a conversation. The breath continues, faithful and steady, a reminder that he can always return. The room holds this quiet transformation. Nothing visible has changed, yet something fundamental has shifted. The narrator closes the part with a quiet tension. If awareness can break old patterns, what else might it be capable of? The man takes another breath, standing in that space between impulse and action, sensing that he has only just begun to discover its depth. As awareness deepens, the man begins to notice a larger shift, not just inside himself, but in how the world feels around him. Before, reality felt solid and fixed, something happening to him, something he had to face, endure, or control. Now it feels different, more fluid, more responsive. The room is still the same room. The sounds outside are still there, yet his experience of them is changed. He notices how his inner state colors everything. When his mind is tense, the world feels heavy. When his attention is open, the world feels lighter. This realization grows quietly. Reality is not just what happens, it is how what happens is met. The narrator gently widens the view. Science once described the universe as a machine, separate parts, moving independently. Observer on one side, reality on the other. But modern discoveries tell a different story. Observation affects outcome. Measurement alters behavior. The observer cannot be fully removed from the experiment. The man feels this truth directly, not in equations, but in experience. He sees that his thoughts, emotions, and attention are always interacting with the world, shaping meaning, shaping response. Reality begins to feel less like an object and more like a relationship. He does not create the world, but he participates in it, moment by moment. When he rushes, the world feels rushed. When he resists, the world feels heavy. When he allows, the world feels open. The narrator poses a quiet philosophical idea. Perhaps reality is not something we observe from the outside, but something we are always inside of. This idea unsettles him at first. If reality is relational, then there is responsibility, not blame, not control, but participation. He realizes how often he moved through life unconsciously, projecting fears, expectations, and assumptions, then reacting to them as if they were facts. Now awareness reveals a choice, not over events, but over relationship. He cannot choose what appears, but he can choose how he meets it. This feels empowering and humbling at the same time. He is not the center of the universe, yet he is not separate from it either. The breath continues to anchor him, a reminder that he is alive, here. In this exchange between inner and outer, the narrator invites the audience inward. If reality responds to attention, if experience changes with awareness, then every moment becomes meaningful, not because it is perfect, but because it is participated in. The man looks around the room, seeing it not as a backdrop, but as part of a living interaction. The story begins to turn toward a final question. If reality is shaped through relationship, what kind of observer shapes the most meaningful one? The man takes a slow breath, sensing that the answer is not something to think about, but something to live. The man does not feel transformed in a dramatic way. There is no sudden revelation, no final answer, arriving like a flash of light. Instead, there is something calmer, something steadier. He is still standing in the same room, living the same life, facing the same world, yet he is not the same observer he was before. He notices how awareness now arrives more easily, not always, not perfectly, but often enough to matter. The breath continues to guide him, not as a technique, but as a reminder, a return point. When life pulls him into noise and urgency, the breath brings him back. When thoughts tighten their grip, awareness loosens it. He begins to see that this path is not about escape. It is about intimacy with life. Every moment becomes an invitation to notice, to feel, to respond with clarity instead of habit. The narrator speaks softly to the audience. Awareness is not something added to life. It is what reveals life as it is. The man understands now. The observer is not a distant watcher, hidden behind experience. The observer is shaped by attention, moment by moment, breath by breath. What he watches grows. What he resists tightens. What he meets with openness changes form. This understanding feels alive, not fixed, not complete. Some days awareness will be strong, other days it will fade, but the possibility always remains. He realizes this is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering what has always been here. Presence, choice, participation. The narrator turns the lens fully toward the viewer. You are already observing, every moment, without effort. The only question is how. Are you lost inside every thought, pulled by every reaction? Or are you aware of the breath, aware of the pause, aware of the space where choice begins? The man takes one final slow breath, not to end the journey, but to continue it. Because awareness is not a destination. It is a way of meeting reality, and in that meeting, the observer you become shapes the life you live.